customer. We're excited not only to share the tools that they use for Customer 360, but also how they are enabling different departments within Servco to adopt data analytics in improving their customer engagement. My name is Michelle Chung, and I'm the director of True, a public and private partnership with a mission to increase tech-enabled jobs in Hawaii. We all face similar business problems. How can my workforce securely work remotely? How do I engage customers during the pandemic? How can I leverage technology in a better way? True serves to support organizations in Hawaii by sharing solutions to common business problems with the hopes that it'll help you accelerate the adoption of technology and innovation at your firms. If you listen to the speakers and think, I could use a solution, then we want to support you in making that happen. That's literally my job, so please do reach out. True is an initiative of the Hawaii Executive Collaborative. If you're interested to learn how you or your organization can be a part of True, please visit hec.org/true or connect with me. I'd also like to introduce and thank the other organizations who helped to bring you these events and the people behind them. The first is HEDC, Hawaii Technology Development Corporation, is a state agency attached to DBED. Their mandate is to grow the tech economy and workforce here in Hawaii, which is closely aligned with True's mission. The second is the Entrepreneur Sandbox, which is a co-working facility in Kaka'ako, owned by HEDC and managed by Box Jelly. It's Hawaii's front door to innovation, where we stand up technology, showcase it, and provide an open space for collaboration. We have a great and jam-packed agenda today, where Servco team will share their strategy to digitally transform, as well as how they've approached getting a 360 view of their customers. The team will share a more detailed agenda shortly. After their presentation, we'll open it up to Q&A. Before we begin, I wanted to share a couple of housekeeping items. The session is being recorded, and you'll have access to that via the website. Please feel free to send in your questions during the session through the Q&A function. We'll address them at the end of the webinar, and if there are some quick questions, the team will try to address them during the webinar. If the Q&A goes long, please do submit your questions and we'll do our best to get you the answers after the event. At the end of the session, you will have access to a survey so you can provide any feedback. Just as importantly, if you'd like to continue the conversation with Servco to learn more or learn about the different tools that they're using, just indicate so in the survey. As we face the pandemic, we're faced with the difficult decisions of how we adapt to new models, leverage new technologies, and keep our organizations and families safe. The world and the way we do things is changing right before our eyes, and we've seen digital transformation leaping forward out of necessity. Much of the change is enabled by technology, and we're all still adjusting and tweaking our solutions. I'd ask you to join me in welcoming the Servco team today as they share how they have accelerated their digital transformation. I'd like to introduce Peter Dewar, Senior Vice President of Digital at Servco Pacific, Inc. Peter joined Servco in 2019 to lead Servco's digital strategy. Prior to that, Pete spent his career in retail, supporting enterprise digital and technology efforts, working from a developer all the way up to a CTO. He spent 12 years at J.Crew and Madewell, a New York-based multi-channel retailer. There he directed the transformation of IT organizations that drove jcrew.com e-commerce business to more than double its revenue. Before J.Crew, he worked at Accenture for over 9 years, implementing technology architecture and integration solutions throughout various industries, from startups to Fortune 500 companies across the globe. Welcome, Pete.
Hey. Aloha, everyone, and thank you so much, Michelle, for your introduction. We're extremely grateful to be here today. We have a lot of content, like Michelle mentioned. First and foremost, we're so grateful, like I said, and to be a part of the presentation team for the True Innovation Series is really great. We want to thank True, HCDC, the Entrepreneur Sandbox for all they're doing to support collaboration and innovation across our business community. We feel like today is just the beginning, so hopefully we can share some ideas. Hopefully you can learn some things from us. Hopefully we can learn from you, and we can have a lot of follow-on conversations. We like to make sure this is also engaging, and we really want to thank you for taking time out this Thursday afternoon to spend more than an hour and a half with us. So please try and make it interactive. We have the chat box, so if questions come up as we're presenting, we'll try and answer them. We also have Q&A at the end, reserved for about 15 minutes, as Michelle mentioned. And if we don't get to it, we'll share all of our contact information. So we'd love to figure out how we can continue to collaborate beyond today. Now on to the agenda. So I'm going to just share with everyone for a second. Okay. So moving on. Like I said, we have an exciting agenda today. We want to start by introducing our team, which will come just after this. From there, I'll lead off with an overview of our digital transformation, and then I'll turn it over to Tosif, who's going to take us through the culture of data that we're starting, which is centered around really looking at our customer from a 360 perspective. And then from there, we'll move it over to Brian and John, who will start to communicate how we're actioning that data in our Salesforce Marketing Cloud. And then Tosif will again take us through how we're using advanced analytics with solutions like Tableau to further drive insights and actionable recommendations for how we can use that data around our customer and our operations to further improve our business. We'll move on then to a conversation around frictionless e-commerce with two of the platforms we selected and are currently implementing. That'll be Sheila, Sean, and Brian. And then we'll do a recap and open it up for Q&A. So moving on to introductions.
Hi, I'll go first. I'm Sheila Bernardo. I joined Servco a little over 3.5 years ago, and I'm excited to sort of share some of the best practices and learnings that we've developed over the past 1.5 years. It's been an exciting growth period for us.
And this is John McDonald. I'm one of the product owners on our team. I've been with Surfco for about 1 year now, and happy to be here with you.
Hi, I'm Sean Terrace. I'm the Director of Software Engineering at Surfco. I actually started on the exact same day as John McDonald, so we often get people get confused with us, John and Sean. But I run the internal development team at Surfco. It's kind of an exciting time. We've built up the team to about 6 or 7 internal developers and a few external development resources as well.
Hello, my name's Tosif Islam. I'm Surfco's data guy. My team and I assist Surfco in measuring strategic initiatives, data visualization, data modeling and pipelining, as well as robotic process automation. I'm new to Hawaii, and one of my favorite things about Hawaii is the food, and happy to be here.
And finally, hi everybody, I'm Brian Rothy. I head up our product management team over here at Servco. So we're responsible for really prioritizing our initiatives, driving new features and innovation across all of our digital platforms. And I've been with Servco now for about 8 years.
Great, thanks everyone. So let's jump in. So why are we on this digital transformation? I think it all starts with the imperative for disruption that's happening already within automotive. If you look across these themes, from customer behavior to what does the purchase process look like for customers now, the Amazon expectation of what it is to buy a product, really forcing the change in how people purchase cars today. Think of what Tesla's doing in terms of customer experience. How do people use vehicles? Is traditional ownership changing? We know it is. We have car sharing, we have on-demand utilization. How are we adapting to that? And then as a car is becoming more of a piece of software sitting on top of the mechanical, what does that open up in terms of mobility as a service? All of these solutions that now gather a lot more data about our cars, about our customers, and what does that mean in terms of how do we engage in new ways with those customers and offer new services? All riding on top of the cloud. In terms of vehicle technology, how are people using the cars that are becoming more connected on a daily basis? With the alternative drivetrains like electrification, which we know are coming soon, en masse? Autonomous, when will it really become real? And we know the manufacturers, the OEMs themselves are seeing themselves more like data and technology companies versus the traditional car and automobile manufacturers. And they're building these really interconnected software-driven ecosystems. One example is Toyota. As of being a distributor of Toyota, we spend time learning a lot about where they're headed. On top of their ambitious woven city, which is really an ecosystem of fully connected, smart everything, which is really kind of the city of the future. And then on top of that, there's significant investment in software development with their TRI-AD separate company that's really looking at a software-first approach to the future of automobiles. So what's exciting about us is we want to be at the forefront of that. We want to help that disruption and understanding that those two pivotal imperatives around customer behavior and the underlying technology and usage of the automobile is inherently going to change our operations. So how do we get ahead of that? How do we start to think of experiences today that can start to inform what tomorrow is going to look like from a customer relationship with our brand products and services? And it really starts to move us from a selling product company to selling services and experiences for our customers. The next slide really tees up what does that look like for us. So our approach to the transformation really centers on this concept of combining innovation and disruption. And with this, we kind of came up with this concept of Servco Labs. When we go back to our founder, Peter Fukunaga, he used to say, you can either grow or you can shrink. There's really no middle ground. In the spirit of those words, and one of our core values of continuous innovation, this mobility labs concept is really kind of a bit of an R&D, but it's really a culture within the company that we are helping to enable, which is really to drive innovation in all aspects of our business. And this is where we really can work as our team, the digital team, to empower our own team, but also our business partners, and work closely with our customers to incubate ideas, to use an agile mindset, and bring those things to market. And the things that don't work, we learn from them, we measure them with data, and we can adapt relatively quickly. And this really allows us to stay ahead of the curve with regards to innovation. And really what we love here is this concept of Servco Labs is really around fostering a culture of curiosity. We're continuing to learn. We don't know the answers, but we have this mentality that we're going to try new things. We're going to see how they work. Those things that do will scale. We're very much taking it from a customer first perspective. And really the goals of Servco Labs, like I mentioned before, is to try and look ahead. What are those disruptive models that are right now impacting our industry and those to be coming? And can we also take a leadership role in those? And how do those impact our business today while we start to pivot to what the future of our relationship with our customers will be in the years to come? I mentioned agility and flexibility. So that's really not just the technology, it's retooling our talent, it's investing in new talent. It's also using new processes like the Agile framework to test and learn and continuously adapt. And then I think one of the things on top of this from a goal is we also want to be a mobility and sustainability leader within our community and that we serve within here in Hawaii and across the globe. And I think one thing is, we want to be proactive and always lead with a sense of urgency. The changes upon us, this year is definitely proof, with COVID, we really had to pivot really quickly and adapt to not just for business continuity, but to adapt to changing customer behaviors and macroeconomic behaviors as well. And then this is kind of how we think of how the Servco Labs concept drills down to certain focus areas. I won't go through all of them today. We're going to focus on the top three, but going back to those disruptive areas I mentioned on the outset, from consumer behavior, technology, and the dealer operations, here's how we think we need to pivot and put together these focus areas to help our transformation along that curve. So today we're going to talk about digital transformation and customer experience, data analytics, and our agile process, which is kind of at the center of everything. I think one thing I would also take away from this is we believe data is essentially at the core of all of this. And it's also driving some of our innovation investments in some of the other areas, which we'll surely talk about at another time. So starting with our digital transformation. So at the center of this digital transformation of the Surfco Experience is really the customer. So we really want to make sure we're doing everything to understand their behavior, how they want to shop, when they want what they want, and where. So we want to meet them at every aspect of their engagement with us, which we know predominantly starts with a digital conversation first. Although in our model, we know it's inherently omni-channel as well. What we really want to do, though, is really understand what are those early indicators of demand, what are those things that are really working and aren't working. So like I said before, data is really at the foundation of this. So moving from left to right, we've invested heavily in the last year building these data-driven personalized customer journeys. And we'll get into that in more detail through the course of this presentation. What that's really opening up for us is the ability to identify pain points in our experience today and opportunities and blind spots as well, where we want to take the customer, where the customer is asking us to go. And so that's where we focus in the center on building this frictionless omni-channel experience, which we'll talk a bit later with our investments in Salesforce and Roadster. And then the third, the platform for agility and growth, is really a combination of people, process, and technology. I mentioned earlier the Agile framework, which we're adopting, the investment in our team, the retooling of existing team members, getting everyone into that curious mindset and understanding what's available now in the market to help us solve problems much more efficiently and scale. And once we find those solutions, we believe are really going to be impactful for our business in the short, mid, and long term. And then another aspect of this, centering around the customer, is really starting to invest in what we call journey mappings. So, in an ideal world, right, it would be very linear. The customer, they see your product, they buy it, they love it, they go back and buy it again. I mean, it's like all of us who love Apple, right? You're kind of like, I know I'm going to get the next iPhone when it comes out. But in reality, right, it's a very non-linear journey, which is what this is meant to represent. There's a lot of moments in between of discovery, consideration, when you get into even the purchase process, especially when you're looking at a high ticket item like an automobile, or even in service or a car share. A lot of these journeys kind of follow this non-linear path. And our goal really is to start mapping these out. And we've done so over the past year through direct customer engagement, and whether it's focus groups, whether it's ghosting the experience as a customer, bringing the customers in to test things and get their feedback, getting the real feedback from the people on the ground who live and breathe with customers every day, at all aspects of our operations. So this journey mapping is really crucial in helping us understand where the opportunities are to reduce friction today, but also start to pivot to where we can be disruptive in areas of the journey that just aren't being managed today, or where we think we can take the customer tomorrow. And that tees up what we believe is kind of our future, overarching journey, which is the Surfco experience. So at highest level, when we think of everything we invest in from a product perspective, we kind of look at the circular journey, that's inherently nonlinear as well as you move between these components. And this is where we think, we're going to put a lot of our efforts into differentiating into the Surfco experience. And we'll talk a bit about that. And then this is at the highest level is our roadmap. So it's really focused on a 3-year roadmap. We started probably the midpoint of last year, and the building blocks really, the fundamental tenet was build a team, and that build a team isn't just hire a new team. It was, find talent within the organization, and we repurpose them into this digital strategy team, as well as hire a new talent, and also help retool our organization as a whole to support, looking at things through this digital mindset and this customer first mindset, using the digital engagement tools and data as an underpinning. And so the building block year has also been focused on looking at platforms, selecting the platforms, understanding how we're going to go about testing and learning and developing that curiosity mindset with the use of the Agile methodology, which we stood up, adopting A/B testing and other things. And then what that's really unlocked for where we currently are in the click and mortar integration, which we've accelerated through COVID, is really blurring the lines between the retail experience at our dealerships, for example, and the online experience, and really tying together that journey from a customer perspective, and empowering our sales associates and our service associates and everyone who works across all aspects of the operations and engages with customers to have that data at their toolkit, at their fingertips, I should say, to better support the customer journey. And what that unlocks in the future years is really kind of, the art of what's really going to be possible. Now we have this data foundation, we've reduced friction in the journey, we have the platforms to support growth, we have a mindset of agility. And then going back to what I mentioned around Toyota and some of what they're investing in, how do we bring some of that to the market here? How do we start to create, with all of these new innovations in the space of automotive, great customer experiences, to kind of pivot us from, like I said, from before, to selling products and services to really a customer experience and services driven organization. And so, like I said, at the core is building the team. So the way we thought of our team, and it took a lot of inspiration from the Silicon Valley product group, Marty Kagan. It's a great book I remember reading early in my career called Inspired, how to create tech products customers love, and really moving from a solution-led approach to an organization to a product-led approach. And we've shared a lot of resources about this later, but the idea there is really to establish a product management mindset within our team and within the organization to determine the products we want to go after. Each of those products really is kind of an ecosystem into itself. And from there, we also believe that we want to actually start building and doing some R&D. So we invested in an in-house application development team, which Sean leads. And then, of course, like I said, at the center of all this is getting out our data, really deriving insights up from it, being able to visualize it in new ways and use that to help drive our operations today, as well as identify those opportunity sets we want to go after. As we're using a lot more data too, what's really critical is respecting that customer data. So a real focus on data governance and security, especially as we're doing a lot more with that information. And we want to make sure at the core, we're respecting that relationship with the customer and keeping that information safe. And then, like I said, platforms, and Sheila will talk a bit about this, really investing in platforms that'll scale with us and also allow us to test and learn and move and integrate across what is inherently a disparate ecosystem when you think of all the digital opportunities and platforms that live out there today. So the next slide is a view of how we take that product-led mindset and apply it to our business model. So you're here, this is really meant to illustrate a platform architecture, and that goes across all the customer touch points. And then within each, you can kind of see in the white certain products, that we define that are, a combination of a customer experience, something that drives some type of business outcome and inherently has technology at the core to enable it. And from here, we start to organize our customer journeys around what does the customer journey for search really look like? How do we improve that, for example? And as you take that down layer by layer into marketing, sales, service, and operations, at the core, like I said, is data and analytics to drive all of this, is really the way we frame, all the opportunity sets we're going after, and how we align our product team to work with our business partners to find friction in what exists today and opportunities where we can go tomorrow. And then the next slide is really meant to represent, how we apply, a technology kind of strategy to it. So here, we're cloud first, and we've been this way for more than 15 years. And with that, we really want to make sure we're not doing anything kind of heavy lifting on-prem. We want to go with best-in-class cloud partners, loosely coupled, like I said, so we can swap in, swap out. And from here, the takeaway is today we're going to spend time talking through some of the key partners we've selected over the last year. Of those, the first one we'll mention is Amperity. So like I mentioned at the outset around data, our customer data, coming into this was resident in a lot of disparate systems, which is typical in most organizations. And we didn't have a way to bring that data together, make sense of it, action it, build segmentation, utilize that for personalization, and for a whole variety of things. And so Amperity is an innovative and disruptive customer data platform that uses AI on the front end, and we'll get into that later, to deliver that customer 360, which we'll talk a bit about in more detail. Next up, obviously Salesforce, which is a huge ecosystem. For us, we're going to focus a bit on how we're utilizing it for our digital marketing, for our commerce solution, which is Salesforce Commerce Cloud, as well as for Tableau, which is one of their recent acquisitions last year, for advanced data and visualization. And then we'll talk a bit too about automation, because I think driving efficiency through this is really critical. And so we have a solution in pilot called Alteryx, which we utilize to identify those opportunities to take manual things, automate them, free up, that Team Surfco members' time to do more value-added work using all that data that we've hopefully now provided for them in a meaningful way. On top of that, we have Snowflake, which is and we'll mention a bit about that, which is an easier way to get at that customer data and drive segmentation and analytics and reporting. Okay, so now we're going to get into fun stuff. So we'll start with a deeper dive into data. Like I said, at the core of this transformation is data, and at the core of that is our customers. So we'll start going a little deeper into how we solve that with Amperity, and I'll turn it over to Tosif.
Great, thank you, Pete. So as you saw previously, the foundation for our platform and transformation is data. And like most companies, Servco's customer data was siloed in specific applications and databases. In order to understand our customers' needs and better predict their wants, we had to stitch together all our customer moments. By consolidating our customer interactions, we will be able to predict how to retain our existing customers and acquire new brand loyalists. So let's take a look at Amperity, the platform we are utilizing to build our customer data platform. In order to solve for our siloed data, we turn to Amperity and their intelligent AI identity resolution algorithm to stitch our customer data together. What's brilliant about Amperity is your system source data stays untouched. So you can leave your siloed data as is and utilize Amperity to provide a clean, unified customer table for downstream use. With Amperity creating golden customer records, we were able to utilize the platform to readily create email segments and do deep analysis in ways that were previously very difficult and labor intensive. Let's take a look. On the next slide, we'll take a look at how the platform works. First, the raw data that holds your customers' information, like your leads, marketing information, sales records, and so forth, is ingested into their platform. The AI algorithm stitches the previously siloed data based on the customer's personal information, like email, address, and phone number. Amperity will then create a table with clean, up-to-date customer information called the Customer 360 table. This table contains not only the customer's personal information, but also aggregated interactions and touch points for you to utilize in your analysis or creation of email segments. For Servco, we have some pretty interesting and very specific data points for automotive, like lifetime value, number of vehicles purchased, or for our marketing, emails clicked. From there, the possibilities are pretty endless, from creating very specific segments or doing deep dives into customer groups, and finally pushing that data to marketing and analytics platforms. Next slide, please. I've consulted for a bunch of companies from Apple to Starbucks, and like those companies, Servco's data was siloed and duplicating every year. We had 840,000 sales records and like 33 million customer attribution records. By utilizing Amperity, we took 6 million raw customer records and created 350,000 unique customer records, which had a duplication rate of 41.5%. So from here, we appended customer interaction columns like sales, leads, email marketing metrics, creating our Customer 360 table. By utilizing Amperity, we were able to tackle the previously poor CRM experience, update and enhance our customer analytics and reporting, and speed up our email segmentation time. So let me give you a good example. So I got a message a couple of nights ago that we needed to close one of our servicing centers for sanitation due to COVID, and we had to send out that communication as soon as possible. Utilizing Amperity, I was able to create an email segment in less than 10 minutes. So let's take a look at how Amperity does it. Next slide. So this is a slide we could probably spend a lot of time on, but what I will do is I'll quickly go through it. And if you'd like, Amperity has some fantastic white papers available online. So step 1, the raw data is assigned semantic labels after it's been ingested. Step 2, the customer's personal information is standardized. Step 3, a single virtual table is created aligning common data types. Step 4, records are duplicated. And then step 5, a unique Amperity ID is assigned to customer records. And then finally, a Customer 360 table is created. We had to make sure that when we went through and implemented this platform that we did it well. And hopefully this outlines a good way to maybe kind of tackle this task. So what we did was we started with a 3-month proof of concept, aggregating the raw data from our vendors and partners and having Amperity process the customer records and ingest it into their platform. Once we were able to validate the stitched customer records, we utilized it for some retail marketing segments. From there, we created a customer 360 and a vehicle 360 table to add insightful data points for further analysis and marketing needs. These tables are now being utilized for reporting and visual analytics in Tableau. Finally, with the flexibility of Amperity, we were able to kind of readily digest additional data sources to build richer customer profiles. Next slide, thank you. A great benefit with Amperity is the flexibility of the platform. With its visual segment builder, along with its SQL editor, people from different departments at different levels can utilize the platform. Our marketing team is able to readily utilize Amperity to create segments, personalize marketing campaigns, and measure campaign effectiveness. Our business intelligence team, myself and my team, we're able to leverage Amperity IDs to create dashboards and insightful reports, tying together these siloed data sources. Finally, our IT team has been able to utilize Amperity for some very cool applications. Most recently, Sean built out a trade-in estimator where a customer could put in a VIN for their vehicle, and then the application would pre-fill their personal information like name and phone number. Next slide. So right now, Amperity has created a really great foundation for Surfco, and we've made great progress in measuring and automating the most impactful initiatives. And now we look towards the future. So with Amperity's flexibility and rapid ingestion of data, we are flexible and agile enough to ingest new data sources as our needs change and our platform expands to better service our customers. Finally, as Surfco grows, we can readily utilize Amperity's data to accelerate future IT initiatives. I wanted to show everyone a simple example of how we are able to unify previously siloed information. This dashboard is utilizing Amperity's C360 table and the Amperity ID to tie together vehicle sales and service history. As you can see, right under my name is my unique Amperity ID with my personal information. I redacted my address, so if you want to get in contact with me, give me a call or use my email. And finally, what you're seeing is my vehicle purchase history and service history, which again, previously in different databases, different applications. And if necessary, we could also add other interesting data points like emails, clicks, leads created, and so on. This has been a pretty useful tool. As we get opt-out CCPA notices, this is the first tool I go to just to see if that customer is in our database. Great. So let's move on to the next slide. In conclusion, Amperity has allowed us to create customer segments 140 times faster than our previous efforts, with downstream impacts like increased deliverability, open, click-through, and conversion rates, all very important when measuring the effectiveness of marketing campaigns. Finally, it reduces all the manual work that was previously bogging down our marketing and analytics team, freeing us up to ask and answer the most important questions. With that, I'll turn it over to Brian to talk about the innovation in our marketing space.
Thanks, Joseph. So yeah, the first thing I'll say is that we're not unique. So like a lot of businesses, we knew we had some challenges in regard to customer engagement across our platforms. First, we were sending marketing and transactional emails with different email service providers. So look and feel and also messaging were inconsistent. We were also using MailChimp and a handful of other vendors for marketing emails, while transactional emails and scheduled sends were coming from our CRM, our service scheduling platform, and other third parties. So it was a complete inconsistent experience for our customers. In terms of analytics, we weren't able to track email campaigns effectively at all. Analytics were limited to your pretty generic open rates, click-throughs, site engagement, but we didn't really have any insight into what happened afterwards. So really, what's happening in the business? What is this really driving? We had no data on whether those email messages were driving sales or even trade-ins. since we've gotten started with Marketing Cloud, and we'll get into this in a little bit, we do have a lot more visibility into what happens after a customer engages with an email. And Tosif is going to share what that reporting looks like a little later on. Another problem that we had is our data was unreliable. So aside from first name, personalization was pretty much non-existent. Every email we sent was manual. Every email was planned and sent to the masses, usually around our sales events and offers. So it was really a spray and pray approach. And we knew that we really needed to tailor the messaging for smaller segments based on what we know about our customers. We should be leveraging, and we are starting to leverage all of that stitched customer data that lives in Amperity that Tosif just covered. And finally, our A/B testing was just limited to subject lines. So we knew we had a problem that we had to solve. And then we got into Marketing Cloud. So I'll talk a little bit about how we approached Marketing Cloud on the next slide. So at high level, I'll just say one of our goals is to improve Servco's relationship with the customer. So we're really shifting more from a transactional communication strategy to a more proactive communication strategy. We want to reach the customer at various touch points with relevant messaging when it makes sense throughout their relationship with Servco. So while sales are important, we want to make sure that the customer is engaged even after that transaction so that we can continuously provide value and stay engaged with that customer. So moving on to the approach, we first signed the agreement with Marketing Cloud in 2018 because we knew and recognized its potential. But unfortunately, at the time, we didn't really have the team or resources we needed to build it out and manage it properly. So in the summer of 2019, we brought on a product owner who's specifically responsible for all things Marketing Cloud. And actually, that's John McDonald, who we'll hear from in a couple minutes. John really owns everything Marketing Cloud and was dedicated to the proper setup and configuration of accounts, data feeds, and templates. And then we ramped up usage in the fall of last year and scaled the solution to all of our brands, including Toyota, Lexus, Subaru, Chevy, and pre-owned. So we started by designing and coding branded email templates. You can see an example in this slide. So we standardized those things. The marketing team was trained on building emails, and we started some more A/B testing. So we're not just limited to subject line A/B testing anymore, but we're really getting better about testing engagement with content and offers. Automation Studio, this is kind of where we are right now. Today, we're beginning to use Automation Studio for scheduled sends, so we can use our data to do that. We're in a good place with our marketing team, and they're ramped up and beginning to drive a more effective email strategy with frequent sends to smaller segments with relevant messaging. But they're still built individually and sent to relatively large groups of customers. So with Automation Studio, which is a component of Marketing Cloud, what we're able to do is we can run campaigns continuously that send maybe to only a handful of customers every day, but the content is personalized and the message is relevant. We just started running a purchase anniversary campaign, so that's meant to drive service business. So we're sending emails at various increments, like 6 months and 1 year from purchase date, which is something we just got started with. Something that we plan to get started with soon is using Journey Builder. It's another Marketing Cloud component, which will give us additional levers to pull with even more options for, how a customer gets started with a journey, what those activities are, and what the flow control looks like. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Let's see. Okay, so you can go back to the next one, Pete. Sorry. Okay, so these are examples of the types of journeys that you can build in Marketing Cloud. So we have a multi-step journey that's really sending messages across any channel based on marketing logic and audience behavior. You have a single send journey that is meant to quickly build and send single personalized messages in any available channel. And then finally, there's transactional send journeys. So you can send messages once an event occurs. So if you think about events happening on other platforms that you might use that trigger Marketing Cloud sends with an API connector. So think about, as we're looking at this, how it might apply to your own business. The next slide shows the building blocks of customer journeys, which give you even more insight into how you might be able to apply this tool for your own business. The building blocks are really made up of entry sources, activities, and flow control. So the entry sources are how a customer gets involved or gets entered into a journey or gets started in a journey. We are primarily using the data extension entry right now. because our segments are first built in Amperity, but we will be getting started with other events like what we're doing on the Commerce Cloud side. So if a customer is engaging with a certain model, for example, we can put them in a journey. If they abandon their card, we can put them in another journey. And then activities are, email, text message, push notifications. You can fire all of these things using those entry sources. And flow control really controls the timing between activities. So you can really do things like randomly split audiences or send emails based on site engagement, like, or even email like opens, click-throughs, and site goal conversions. So I think John is going to cover next sort of a real example of how we're doing this.
Yeah, so this, excuse me, this is a simple diagram showing how we're using their automation tools. So we're ingesting the Amperity data using Automation Studio. Oh, shoot, let me turn the video. And then as a result, an email is sent out. On the next slide. So this is an automation, the anniversary automation that Brian mentioned. After the data is loaded from Amperity, another automation is run where it retrieves the customers that have purchased a year ago or 6 months ago, and then it triggers an email to be sent to that audience. Next slide. So again, this is how we're using, and if you would click Beat, in the future, this is where we're going to go. We're going to take advantage of some of those cool features that Brian mentioned in Journey Builder, which will then allow us to send multiple emails and at different times and potentially remarket from those emails. And Joseph is going to talk about our. Yeah.
So with our email marketing platform in place, we needed to measure its effectiveness. By utilizing Amperity, we were able to track customer engagement through our marketing funnel, better understanding our customer behavior. This dashboard tracks the customer from click to send to lead created to vehicle purchase, as well as providing additional information like where they live and what device they use. So let's take a look at the platform delivering these insights. So my favorite quote as a data guy, I'm not sure which famous person said it. It's, if you don't measure it, you can't improve it. So in order to measure digital strategies, strategic initiatives, as well as providing insightful reporting for the rest of Surfco, we selected Tableau as our data visualization platform. We selected the hosted version of Tableau server to reduce administration overhead so we could do the fun stuff. With the flexibility of its drag and drop feature, my team and I were able to quickly build MVPs to support strategic initiatives and ad hoc analysis tasks. And since no one person is the same, Tableau allows us to provide the data in the medium that best fits the user's needs. For example, my executives use our mobile dashboard to check how sales are doing every day on their phones. Whereas I think like Hui's, our startup's vice president, has a PDF copy of a dashboard sent to his email instead. This combination of speed and flexibility is what makes Tableau a standout visualization and reporting platform. So finally, with the numerous data source options, we were able to leverage Snowflake and SQL Server to maintain fresh and up-to-date data. Next slide. In order to have a successful launch of this platform, my team and I identified the most labor-intensive reporting tasks, along with new opportunities. We utilized our newly unified and clean Amperity data. We then built out dashboards for the most impactful metrics for both desktop and mobile consumption. And once COVID hit, with the flexibility Tableau and Amperity gave us, we were able to build out reports to track the impact of COVID in certain business functions. For example, watching service appointments and cancellations or vehicles pending. In addition to creating purely reporting dashboards, we created modular dashboards that give analysts the flexibility to look at the data in multiple ways and ask multiple questions. Finally, I made sure to train my team on basic design principles so we could leverage the power of Tableau to create not only insightful reporting, but what I hope to be beautifully crafted visualizations. Next slide. So at Digital Strategy, I think we realized in order to free up our analysts' day, we couldn't just create dashboards and reports. There were some very labor-intensive reporting tasks going on. We selected a tool called Alteryx to help us automate time-consuming reporting tasks. With its simple GUI-based interface and the versatile tools, we had been able to readily build multiple automation projects. Finally, it's a robust tool, and it does more than just automation. It quickly up-levels an analyst's skill set by giving them the tools to do most foundational data tasks without having to learn SQL or other programming languages like Python. So what you're seeing currently is a project that we took on. We found an analyst who he was taking 8 hours a day to create a report, and he was doing this twice a week. So we went in there and we asked if we could assist him with this. We were able to automate that report down to 20 minutes a day. So now it takes 20 minutes a day to process. And instead of doing it twice a week, we were able to run it every day. And what this did was realign labor in the back of house and make sure that our customers were taken care of in the front of house. The report had to do with making sure we had the right parts to build out vehicles. So if we weren't running this report every day, sometimes we could have a missing part that a vehicle would otherwise need. So by automating this task, we were able to make sure we always had the parts on hand. So with that, I'll turn it over to Brian.
Thanks, Joseph. So we're going to shift now to the build of our next generation retail site experience. We're currently in the middle, about the middle of building this new retail site experience because it's really a hybrid of another Salesforce product called Commerce Cloud, which is an e-commerce platform, and something called Roadster, which is a proven automotive digital retailing solution. So we'll talk a little bit more about Roadster on the next slide, but to get into Commerce Cloud a little bit, it was selected because of its best-in-class e-commerce platform, and it's fully capable of powering the 360-degree personalized experience that we want to build, including more robust merchandising capabilities. To this point, we've been really dependent actually on our existing third-party automotive platforms and really haven't had too much flexibility in terms of personalization or merchandising. So this move is going to give us a lot more control over this experience and how we engage our customers. We'll be able to develop features and designs that we can use across our domains, and we can also scale to other business units or as our business evolves, perhaps to future mobility solutions. And then we'll also be able to use Salesforce Einstein AI capabilities to serve the most engaging content to our customers, including recommended vehicles or offers. Those are not, just limited to sales, but also service in our Hui car share business potentially. And then just jumping over to Roadster next, like I said, Roadster is a proven automotive digital retailing solution, and it was selected to power our site's transactional capabilities. It enables our customers to complete the buying process completely online from start to finish without ever having to step foot in the store. That's what the platform is capable of. We're not using it for all of its features yet, but that's the goal, is to get us there. So by partnering with Roadster, we didn't really have to reinvent the wheel, and we're creating a more transparent experience that actually makes car buying a pleasant interaction rather than a cringy one that I think we hear from a lot of customers sometimes in regard to the traditional car buying experience. Through COVID, we accelerated the launch of Roadster. We had planned to slowly roll this out over the course of this entire year. We stood it up for all of our brands in just a matter of months. So really, that's a testament to our team's agility. It allowed our business to continue running even though our stores were closed. So that's been a really important move for us. Customers, by using this platform, they can essentially create their own deals and see accurate pricing in real time as they interact with the buying options. So as they begin to add things like extended warranties and accessories, they're seeing pricing change in real time. So we're also now providing the option for customers to choose home delivery, so they never have to step foot in our dealership. And again, through COVID, this has been really critical for us. These capabilities have driven more leads for our business, but we also find that those leads are converting at much higher rates because the product and price are more of a true representation of the final deal. The previous experience that we offered, you might see a price online, but once you get into the dealership and you add, an extended warranty and a few accessories to your car, you're not looking at the same price that you'd started with. So this is making our customers really happy. And of course, that's a really important goal for us. So I'm going to pass it over to Sheila now.
Okay, great. Thanks, Brian. What I think I want to really cover on this particular slide is just really reinforcing that Salesforce Commerce Cloud will actually help us build customer trust. It's just simply a more robust system in speaking to customer needs throughout the journey. And as you may have noticed throughout most of this presentation so far, understanding our customer journey is certainly critical. And I believe in the automotive space, we've got about 24 average touch points, 19 of which are digital. So that's certainly something that we want to make sure Servco is actually owning as much as we can. We really want to try and make sure that we're communicating to the customer in a way that, we're addressing their questions of, is it the time for them to buy a vehicle, or is this the right lifestyle product for me or vehicle for me? And that can vary by customer. And so really understanding sort of where they are in their life cycle is certainly key. The main benefits really, if you will, there's definitely the functionality pieces of it, of having a dynamic content management system of, true publishing capabilities, workflows, and a much more, solid version control and greater stability and security. Those are definitely key, but I think the main thing we want to reemphasize is the benefit to the customer. It's really helping them understand, and as they're shopping for a vehicle, are they able to find a vehicle that's in their price range quickly and efficiently? Can they browse specials that apply to that vehicle that they're selecting? And ultimately, are they confident that they've found a pricing option that meets their budget? And then finally it gets to that main point for us of converting that customer from a shopper to a buyer, is that customer actually ready to buy that vehicle? So that's certainly something I think with the Salesforce Commerce Cloud solution, it's just a far better approach than what we had previously. And in addition to that, it's not just what the benefit is to the customer, it's also to the Servco team member. And really, in summary, it's more about enabling them to have more agility and alignment with business goals. So can they get their marketing campaigns live on the site faster and easier? Yes. Will they be able to update pricing and specials content more effectively and drive sales? That's a definite check on that. I think also, can it free up time for them so they can focus on strategic planning and really looking at data-driven campaigns and how those campaigns are executed? That's certainly a plus. But definitely, in benefit going back to the customers, it's creating a foundation, or allowing them to create a foundation for the personalized content and experiences that ultimately will define what we're sort of envisioning as a Servco experience. Next slide. And here I'm going to just sort of touch base on just how we went through the process of selecting Salesforce Commerce Cloud and Roadster, sort of the partnership between the two platforms. And really where this all started with was customer research. What are our customer pain points? What are they struggling with, either when they're online or when they're calling our dealerships, or maybe if they're in the showrooms? How do we help them feel comfortable and feel ready and comfortable that they've actually selected a vehicle that meets their needs? In some cases, from the research, a lot of the pain points were known, and we were ready to address those. Others were net new. That's the main benefit of actually really reaching out to your customer and asking the question. And our process involved in-depth focus groups. It's a little bit more formalized. For smaller companies, or those that want to do something that maybe is faster, you can certainly do that by talking to your customers when they're in your store, or doing quick online surveys, or even asking customers on the phone when they're calling in. There's definitely easy ways to do that, and I think it can be just as simple as asking them, what do they like about your company? What works? What doesn't work? What could be better? And really kind of taking advantage of just being able to interact with your customer. That information that you get from them, that first-person data, is really valuable. For the selection process, I'll touch on this just really quickly. We did go through a three-phased approach over about a 3-month period. And it involved 6 automotive solutions and 4 enterprise e-commerce solutions. And we narrowed our selection down with each of those phases. The first one being sort of an extensive vendor self-evaluation matrix. It was very intimidating, I think, for a lot of our vendors, but they were able to get back to us fairly quickly on those. And then based on those selections, we then narrowed the list down a little bit further. I think we eliminated a couple of those at that point and brought it down to a top level initial demo and presentation with a core team. And then from there, we narrowed it down to, I think, a group of 4, I think is what we netted out at, for final in-person and in-depth discovery sessions with our extended team. So that meant active participation from key business areas across Servco. So that this type of assessment is not something that everyone can do, but you certainly should put some time and effort into actually really kind of preparing, knowing what your requirements are, and really being prepared to ask questions of any platform that you're working with. You know, don't be intimidated to ask. I mean, I think that those are the key things of really pushing those questions with those vendors as you're evaluating them. And the end result of that extensive process, which was about 3 or 4 months, I think in total, for that was that we did net out with Salesforce and Roadster. And, you know, I think for right now, that is the best of breed solution for us. We get the benefits of the power of Salesforce really driving a proven automotive digital retailing solution and showroom desking solution. So Brian sort of touched on this as well. We did anticipate, you know, at least a year to really try and get the digital retail solutions out into the marketplace, and that was phased over each of our automotive brands. And that was the intent of the timeline, was also to ensure that we had time to allow for testing and learning, and really allowing each brand to benefit what the previous brand learned in their rollouts. And obviously, you know, the world changes and COVID happened. And we'd already planned for Agile, and the pandemic, just by its nature, just sort of kicked Agile into high gear for us. And how did we succeed? I think the core of it came down to is just, you know, people come together in a time of crisis. And, you know, I think the fact we were able to really sort of self-organize and get core team members really working very closely together from a remote standpoint, and having them all feel empowered and being able to be as fluid and open in communication amongst ourselves, but also with our vendors. We all had different platforms for tracking, you know, issues and requirements and whatnot, but being able to be flexible and using the available tools to really communicate and keep things moving efficiently for each of those iterations. I think that, among anything, really is what drove the success of actually trimming that timeline from a year down to 3 to 4 months. It's a substantial improvement and a considerable effort by the team. And I think it's definitely something that it doesn't take a crisis to actually have that type of innovation and response and community sense to build. I think it's really just finding what is that core that common goal that you're driving towards. And in this case for Servco, it was just providing better service to our customers and maintaining our business. And while we were doing that in parallel, we obviously had Salesforce Commerce Cloud. And while we had a core team focused on the express stores, our platform, part of my team and the development team under Sean, were actually able to dive into Salesforce Commerce Cloud and figure out how does that better support our auto distribution business. So I'll let Sean speak to that for now.
Okay, thank you, Sheila. So yeah, we're at the second to bottom bullet point on this slide now. So as you can read, it says that we trained an internal team of developers. So one thing I want to point out is that this isn't the kind of recommended way that Commerce Cloud development happens. So if you don't have an internal development team, the Commerce Cloud team will actually introduce you to certified partners that are able to help you with the development. They did introduce us to certified developers, and they found some developers that were in the automotive space that we met with, but ultimately we decided that we wanted to develop the Commerce Cloud portions of our websites internally. So the question may be, why did we decide that? And I think there's a number of reasons. So one reason is that Peter mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that we built up the digital strategy team, not just externally, but also internally. So there's a lot of internal people that were promoted and moved around to become part of the digital strategy team. So we wanted to leverage all of that knowledge and experience in the automotive space, take advantage of that, and be able to use that as we're developing the sites. Another reason is that we wanted to really be as quick as we could, as agile as we could, to be able to make changes. And then I think another important reason is that, as we've talked about in this presentation, we have a lot of key components and key partners that we're dealing with. And we wanted our internal developer team to be able to provide integrations between those different platforms. So for example, we work on integrations between Commerce Cloud and Marketing Cloud. We're working on integrations between Commerce Cloud and Amperity data. We're also using Google Analytics to try to understand the customer journey through our websites. So that's why we decided to do it internally. So the next question is, how did we do that? None of the internal developers had Commerce Cloud experience. So the first thing we did is we took a pretty intensive 1-week training course. Everybody on the developer team signed up for that and did that. And then we also chose kind of an easier platform as our first platform to port, which was our toyotahawaii.com distribution site. So that site doesn't actually have any real transaction component to it. And that let the developers kind of ease their way into Commerce Cloud development. As we started development, we encountered some issues. We didn't know best practices of how to develop Commerce Cloud. So a lot of times we were kind of trying things and then, making decisions to try something else and things like that. So very quickly we identified that as an issue, and we actually contracted a Salesforce technical architect, and he joined our team and worked with us. So that really helped move it along a lot quicker, because we were able to just bounce these ideas off him, and he would be able to very quickly tell us what the best practices were. And then we moved along quite quickly with that. So the last bullet point on here is about our agile methodology. So it's been mentioned throughout the presentation a little bit. We not only employ agile in a project management way, having sprints. Right now we're working on 2-week sprints, having retrospectives after the project's done, things like that. But we also want to employ agile in kind of an operations way. So when a product is actually out there in the world, we want to be agile. We want to do data-driven design. We want to do multivariate testing, things like that, and be able to quickly move and adjust. Next slide, please. Yeah, so one of the reasons that we did this also is because we had a lot of products that were basically on costly legacy platforms. So we have dealer.com, Dealer Inspire. We had some of the distribution sites on an Azure VM. So we wanted to consolidate all of that into kind of just these 2 technologies, which was Salesforce Commerce Cloud and Roadster right now. And that can not only save us money, but it can also leverage the experience and training and everything that we need to become experts in just those 2 platforms, instead of having to, just be average at 10 different platforms. And basically the next bullet point is that, again, we wanted to be really quick to market on any changes we wanted to do. We wanted to be flexible with site enhancements. So we no longer have to depend on external partners to make code changes or implement new features. We can all do that internally. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Sheila for the last 3 points.
Yeah, hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Yeah, so just to kind of close up on this slide, I think the main key takeaway that we have, at least for our toyotahawaii.com site, is definitely an improved mobile experience. I think on a scale of 1 to 5, our previous site probably ran in the 4 to 5 range in terms of mobile performance, which is not great. And certainly now that we have Salesforce, we'll have better opportunities and more capabilities of actually maximizing that experience. The vast majority of our customers are really coming in from a mobile experience, and that's really where we need to be focusing our efforts, and we'll definitely be much more positioned, much better positioned to actually deliver on that. So what I think is key to sort of reemphasize here, we did a lift and shift. So it's mostly the current look and feel and design. We are looking towards doing a fuller redesign that will give us the opportunity of actually doing much more personalized messaging. We'll still be able to do that, based on sort of, where the customer has been searching, pulling in that session data and being able to maximize that type of information. But we really want to get it to where we're leveraging that rich customer data that we have available and really understanding how have we communicated with them in the past, and really are we ensuring that a consistent message is displayed throughout that shopping experience that they have, whether it's online or offline. So I think if anything, we'll certainly see, it's great core functionality, but we have great flexibility and now a team in-house that can actually action that and customize the experience for our customer and to meet our business needs, whether that's product comparison pages or other dynamic sort of conquesting or competitive landing pages. I think the other key thing too is that we definitely have new inventory coming in, so the timing is great for us to leverage the platform, and our teams are ready to re-engage with customers. So it's the holiday season's coming, and we're excited to see what we can do with those special landing pages and really, again, take advantage of that session data, but look towards the future to where we can really show much more personalized messaging and product offerings more effectively and efficiently for our customers. And I think with that, I'm going to hand that back over to Pete.
Okay. Oops. Thank you. Thanks, Sheila. Thanks, everyone. So we're going to go through a couple more slides just to wrap up. The next slide really, it's kind of like a bookend a little bit on what we all discussed over the last hour and change. I mean, the exciting thing for all of us is we feel like we're just getting started. So this year has really been about enablement, building the team and enablement. And I feel like now that we've got some great cornerstone capabilities, processes in place, we're really looking forward to how we can best support, our team in the field, distribution team. Like I said from the outset, really using data to continue to foster that culture of curiosity and to drive opportunities for innovation and really to reduce friction and improve the customer experience. So, some of the impacts we've seen, and we've touched upon this throughout the presentation, really the data platform is kind of at the center of all of it. And it's exciting because as we put in new data sources on a weekly, monthly basis, we're learning more about our customers. We have a really rich customer 360. I don't know how many, we might be approaching 100 interesting attributes, and I think we have probably half the data sources we have intended already in there and more to come. And that's going to really help us move from, I think everyone mentioned, to that customer relationship experience mindset, and then be a lot more predictive in what we're doing, both in the demand signals and the opportunities for everything from what we order and purchase to how we engage with those products and services with our customers, and what that yields in terms of continued business benefit, customer delights, and you name it. The marketing cloud, like we talked about, it's really given us a lot of efficiency. It's a great channel for us when we think email alone. We have a very loyal referral-based customer who's been with us for many generations in many cases. And it's a great way to connect with them in meaningful new ways on a one-to-one basis. And we're able to do that now with the customer data platform in real time. And like I said, from the beginning, it's really like the cornerstone is data, customer data, our internal data, our operational data, and being able to actually quickly analyze that. So some of the things we took you through with Tableau and some of the visualization aspects, as well as looking for opportunities where we're having a hard time stitch data together today in manual ways, and using concepts like robotic process automation to make that process easier, so we can free our team members up to do more value-added insights and drive more action from that data. And then that automation is really the beginning of the journey. That one example, I think we have like a half a dozen that we're trying to figure out to help the teams with, and there's a lot more. I'm sure a lot of your organizations have similar opportunity. We can't tout that enough, how important automation is. And then I think, like we mentioned with Roadster and Salesforce, enabling this omni-channel customer journey, reducing friction, putting the hands in front of the driver's seat, I should say, in front of the customer, and allowing our sales consultants to be more concierges and assist them in the process is really, at the beginning of where we think it will be in terms of transforming that relationship. And throughout it all, I think Sean mentioned it too. We probably use Agile like 100 times during this presentation, but we really, because we don't know the answer, right? We're really looking for a process, a framework that allows us to test into things. I mean, we could spend another hour and a half talking about all the failures and what we learned from them. But the idea is to really pivot quickly where things are really working and we want to run with it. A great example, like Sheila mentioned, and is what we did with Roadster through COVID, and really trying to meet our customers' needs. And that's internal and external customers. And this next slide is really meant to indicate, like, we've selected these platforms for various reasons, but there's so many out there. And there's really, quick and dirty ways to get started with platforms in these spaces without big investments. And we actually, with all of these too, we didn't go big initially. We really wanted to take proof of concepts with each of our partners. And from then we determined, okay, this is worth investing further in. But you can kind of see in the space, I won't go through all of them, but there's a lot of partners out there across CDP, customer data platform, marketing automation, and Hui, for example, right there, with a startup within Servco, it started with much more streamlined marketing solutions like Drip and SendGrid, low-cost ways to kind of reach their customers in new ways. And only now we're talking about how do we help them maybe scale with something like a marketing cloud. With data visualization and analytics, I'm sure Tosif, Tosif would tout this. I mean, it all starts with Excel. I mean, there's a lot you can do with Excel, pivot tables and VLOOKUPs, but I mean, the idea is, once you can get at your information, you can start relatively on the cheap before investing in, a scalable platform. And I think what's interesting too with CDP and even with DBA marketing automation, there's a lot of open source out there, like Apache Zunum, is a way to get in there. Google's got a lot of offerings in the space as well, with the whole idea of kind of the crowdsourcing, kind of the IP, you can at least get started without having to make an enterprise level investment in some of these capabilities. Similarly with e-commerce, Commerce Cloud we landed on, but we also looked at Shopify's of the world. There's, startups that, get really far with WooCommerce, Magento, BigCommerce. I mean, the list goes on. And then on Collab, I think we talked about this throughout the presentation. We didn't really talk yet about the platforms we use, but we landed on the Atlassian suite. So that's, Jira. They also in Trello. Really great with agile project management and issue management, as Sean mentioned. Slack's become kind of like our go-to for collaboration internally. We're big Microsoft shops, so we do use Teams and all the Microsoft footprint. Although we also use Zoom. But again, there's others out there that are either free or relatively low cost to kind of take advantage of to get some of the change in the space and not have to do a heavy lift to get there. So with that said, we also want to make ourselves available. Like, we definitely want to, support all of your efforts. I mean, we're all in this together. We really are, like I said, at the beginning ourselves in many ways, and we're learning every day, and we'd love to share and learn from all of you in follow-up sessions. So I'm going to post this in the chat. So we just, you have the contact information for the team. And again, you can reach out to any one of us, but we just try to put it based on some functional areas. So I'll do that right after I'm done with the presentation. And with that, we're moving on to Q&A.
Great, thank you. Thank you. I'd like to invite everybody back as we go into Q&A session. A big, giant thank you to the Servco team for sharing your solutions so freely, especially the tips and tools. I think that a lot of us are like, where do we start? So I really appreciate that. I'd like to start off by asking, when did you guys start this whole digital transformation?
One of those questions came up in the chat too. It's probably been going on in several iterations for years. And like I said, with Servco, I mean, it's, you know, from our founder, I mean, we've always been trying to evolve and adapt. I think if we look at this current iteration, it really started, you know, early part of last year. You know, I joined in February, and we kind of started putting the plans for the team together in kind of April. And in earnest, we started to kind of, as Sean said, you know, identify where we can source the team internally. We had gone through some agile training across our organization from the Feb to April timeframe. So we started to pick initiatives to go after, probably in earnest in May. So from that point forward, I'd say we were kind of all running in this current course from May of 2019.
Can you share a little bit about how you guys got started? What was the first thing that you guys jumped on? And I love hearing that it was grabbing people from different teams. Can you delve into a little bit more about that first step in the roadmap?
Yeah, and maybe, you know, this would be good. Kind of Brian maybe could talk a bit about the customer perspective, because in like that March, April timeframe, we led these customer focus groups, which really started to create the skeleton of these journeys. And in parallel, we were like trying to find team members to come in and participate, because we're really like, we're not like a separate think tank. We're all about empowering the organization, and like more like an internal consultative role. But I think Brian would be interesting to give a little insight into that focus group concept and how that led to the journey map and opportunities that we went after initially.
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess I'd start by saying digital retailing is something that we've been talking about for a long time. Even some of the things that we've talked about here, like marketing automation and some of these other platforms and goals that we've had, these have been kind of swirling around in our heads for a long time, but we didn't have a team, we didn't have the resources to be able to do it well. So we really started to focus in on it probably toward the end of 2018, where we had a small project team established, and we were really kind of trying to figure out how to improve the customer experience. You know, what do we need to do? How do we look at our platforms and reduce the friction? We knew that there's a lot of friction. I mean, the biggest amount of friction would come between a customer looking at one of our sites and then ending up in the store. And I might have mentioned this in my presentation, but you know, when the price you see online is $10,000 different than the price you see in store, that's a huge friction point. So we knew that there was a lot of opportunity. So that project team that we had, we ran some focus groups. I believe it was around March of 2019. And, you know, before we even ran the focus groups, we'd put together a list of all our assumptions. You know, we assume that these are the friction points. And we really wanted to get those validated and, you know, find out what are the ones we haven't even identified yet. And it turns out a lot of what we expected or thought of as friction points, those were actually definitely friction points. And we uncovered a few new ones, but that was really critical and helped us started building a backlog of opportunity. So, you know, again, we'd already been thinking about digital retailing solutions. We knew we needed to pick one. But we were really able to start moving things along when this digital strategy team was established. So Pete came on board, others joined the team. We pulled from different areas of the company. I came from marketing. We've got people from, you know, IT or what we call TIS on our team. And we've got new people who are very talented and have a lot to offer. So we were really able to get moving on some of these initiatives, including, you know, our digital retailing solution, Roadster, that we had planned. Again, I know we've said this 2 times already. We plan to roll it out over the course of 2019, and we had to accelerate that because of COVID. And you know, this team is very capable, and we're moving pretty quickly on some of these other initiatives now too. So we're in a much better position than we were 1.5 years or 2 years ago. Really, hope that covers it.
Yeah, thank you. I love how you guys approach it a step at a time, and how you guys are so open about running into walls, right? I think we all get there. What made your team choose Amperity Customer 360 services over working with Salesforce's product suite?
I could take the first part, maybe Tosif can add in. I think what really, you know, I come from an environment where we've spent, you know, millions of dollars and over several failed implementations and still couldn't get the customer data platform, well, and it's a lot of horror stories. And so when we were introduced to Amperity, and what we were introduced actually right before I joined, there was an innovation summit that was held with several of our board members and executive team. And it was kind of like a showcase for some in Seattle for a lot of startups in different spaces. And one of the board members had a relationship with the Parity team, and they came in, and I mean, I think everyone's like, is this too good to be true? I mean, because I think what they did, which is different from, I think, a lot of the players in the market, is, they don't force you to go through a real messy ETL process and do, all kinds of data mapping and figure out how to get those sources to map to their targets and figure out then how to run all those things and clean the data at the source. They're kind of like, leave all your data at rest, just give us it in its kind of raw state, and we run it through our AI engine on the front end. So at ingestion, it's doing all of that deduplication and identity resolution and all that stitching. And so really in like 30 days, we were able to get, our core sources in there and start to get results out of it. And so that 3-month pilot, in the second month, we're already running those A/B tests to prove that, we had a much higher quality customer record to work with, that we can now actually do much more intelligent communications with our customers and do a lot deeper analytics on where they are, and then start to do some segmentation and grouping. So, nothing to knock Salesforce. It was just, we needed to take an agile approach to this, and we were still vetting Salesforce on the commerce piece. And we knew, I know, having worked with Salesforce in the past, I know they were kind of going into this space. I think we just felt that we needed something, that our side took very little of our resources to get at the information and cleanse it, keep the operational data stores doing what they do best, and let us build this layer on top in a very quick way. And it's running all of our data on a daily basis and generating these stitched records in a matter of minutes. So now we have real-time access to, our customers' behavior and what we can infer from it. So we thought that was just a, differentiator from any of the platforms I've had experience, or, if we went to market now. And then on top of that, they were just a great R&D partner. Like, we were early in the solution, first in automotive to use them. It definitely had some kinks, but we worked through it together, and they were very adaptable, helped innovate with us too. So now we have not only a customer 360, but also like this concept of a vehicle 360, because a vehicle has a continuity life well beyond the first purchaser, right? So now we're creating these really interesting data sets that, we don't know what we're gonna do with them all, but we know that it's getting out the information that's really telling. And where they're going, which I like, is, they had a recent acquisition of Costura, who I worked with in a prior life. And then now they're using that to do more predictive modeling and getting into the space where now they can create a lot more rich attribution models that can power performance marketing or other DNP or other channels where you want to leverage that customer platform. That's a little long-winded way to answer it, but I don't know, Tosa, if you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think for me, what I really appreciate is the partnership we have with Amperity. I don't think we would have gotten that from Salesforce. There's some really interesting tasks that we've just thrown on their plate, and they've been happy to kind of work with us on. For example, when you look at the market in Hawaii, there's a lot of multi-generational houses, multiple families, grandparents, parents living together. So when we asked them that we needed a householding table, so grouping Amperity IDs based on address, and that was something they were like, we've never done that, but let's work on it together. So that partnership was really valuable. And even with our most current ask was, hey, we need longitude and latitude for all of our customers' addresses. And, we have Sean, who's fantastic. So I was able to reach out to him. And then I was also able to kind of reach out to Amperity, have you guys done this before? And they have a fantastic team. And, whenever our customer success manager couldn't readily answer something, he was able to bring in a specialist. When I asked them about the geolocation issue, I think it was like their lead data scientist he brought in. So I think leveraging, Sean's skill set as well as, best practices that Amperity can give us you know, we're working on these challenging tasks with, you know, I think what is for us maybe a small technical group. So that's what I really appreciate with Amperity.
Thank you. So finding the right partner that's willing to work with you and help grow their product.
Yeah, I'm noticing we also have that relationship now with Roadster, or we're building that relationship with Roadster. So, you know, it doesn't just feel like a platform that we're subscribing to. It does feel like it's a partnership, and we're giving them ideas, and they're actually implementing changes for us in a fairly, you know, quick timeline. So, pretty unique opportunity for us.
Oh, that's really cool.
That
I have a question. Oh, sorry.
We have bi-weekly meetings with their head of product. I mean, we have direct communication with them, and things that they want to do, things that we want to do, we sync up on, and things that we want to do, we've been able to get added to their roadmap. So they're actually able to deliver some of those features.
Oh, that's really cool. Someone's asking, can we get a deal on a Toyota for all the participants that have joined us today?
Head to shop.servcotoyota.com.
No, that's awesome. Can you tell? Huh?
Powered by Roadster.
Powered by Roadster. What do you think was the most challenging part of all of this? So a lot of guys say, oh, you know what, technology can handle. It's usually the adoption that we have trouble with. Can you guys share maybe what your most challenging part of this digital transformation was?
I mean, it's a great question. I mean, we're talking about this before. It's been a lot of fun to date. I feel like we're moving, you know, really fast. I think, you know, I can think of the challenges, you know, adoption for sure. You know, it's definitely not a push, right? We want to pull the team along, and really, I say it all the time. Like, a lot of the ideas of what we work on and prioritize are out there, and we're just creating a platform for communication and collaboration. Even so, though, when when we're pushing those things into market, like Roadster, you know, we had to roll that out much faster than anticipated. You know, there's a lot of change associated with it, right? With our in-store processes and making sure, and the solutions themselves had bugs. You know, there was days it would crash, and you know, and because they were growing fast, and there's things that, you know, would change and we didn't know what happened, and our data was kind of dirty, and so we create friction with the customers. I remember one of the first customers we made a purchase. You know, we calculated the taxes really high in the car, and it was, you know, we kind of had to go back and do something to make it whole. But I think, you know, it's, you know, when you're moving fast, right, by definition, you're gonna break things, and in this capacity, we just have to be diligent to kind of set the right parameters and guardrails and be able to pivot and you know, always do what's right by the customer, by our team, you know, through that. Those are some challenges, you know, I could say. I don't know. Anyone else want to add?
I think, you know, making sure that our sales consultants were trained up and utilizing Roadster was a big one. So with Roadster, we were able to, and, you know, utilizing Tableau, we were able to calculate utilization of Roadster. And then, of course, we have a fantastic product manager. So Brandon Kamagaki, who joined us from the retail team, you know, he's someone that our sales consultants see as a representative. So when he goes in and he can communicate the value of Roadster to the sales consultants, they listen. So I think having someone that, you know, the guys on the floor, the people doing the real work, respect and look up to, I think that was really important for us to have.
Yeah, and I think the data being in all of these disparate sources, that was a big challenge.
All about the data.
It was, you know, somewhat solved by Customer 360, but it's still a challenge that goes on all the time because, you know, people are very resistant to change, especially if a company is successful. So, you know, asking, you know, some of our, you know, the Oracle database team if they can add a new field into the table or something like that, it's very a difficult ask. You know, Customer C360 has actually really helped with that because we can leave the data the way it is, stitch it together, and then find ways to access it. There's still some difficulties with it, like you know, the timeliness of the data is always a question. When we're coming up with a solution to a problem, we're always saying, well, you know, we may only stitch together the data one or two times a day. Is the timeliness of that data good enough for for the solution we're trying to come
Yeah.
up with. You know, but luckily that Amperity ID, there is a mapping table that goes back to the original data source. So we can implement solutions that actually would go back to the dealer track source data, for example, which is more real time or pseudo real time. So we do have a path back as well.
So
Yeah.
Dave had a really good question about, is Amperity a good fit for marketing to enterprise customers? I think it depends on how large your customer list is and how messy it is. I remember when I was doing global credit reporting, and we had small businesses, and sometimes we realized these small businesses did have different entities, but their addresses and phone numbers were the same. I think if you're interested, I would reach out to Amperity personally and talk to them about how much data and how many customers you have. I think they've been a great partner, and they'll definitely be able to work with you on answering that question.
That's a great point. Another challenge, going back to the challenge, just thinking is, we all go through this every day, is just, we just don't have enough resourcing to get at everything we want to get at, here and now. So, prioritizing, trying to help, find ways to chip away at things. This is where Agile really helps, not biting off the full solution, but can we cover a lot of ground by creating minimum viable products in each of our business areas, and then empower them, right? Empower them to kind of run with the incremental releases and the solutions. I think of, kind of Toast's area is really critical, because we didn't want to create like a fiefdom of data. Like, data is like, to us, it's kind of, we're stewards of it, but it's everyone's, to run within and utilize the best they can in their business, and have the tools to run quickly on top of it and drive insights and make those insights actionable. So kind of, working to figure out an organization where we can be helping at the core of it, but also helping to get the teams up and running so that we can cover a lot more ground a lot faster and apply some of those same principles more quickly too.
Oh, great. And I see another question here. How are you utilizing your insights and more robust data capabilities to find opportunities or pivot to address, changing business needs?
That's an interesting question. So we have a couple of dashboards. I think a good one is our service and appointments dashboard, with some of the regulations in place, keeping us from inviting customers into our auto retail. Service is really big for us. So by watching our service appointments dashboard, we can actually see these trends. Specifically when COVID hit, we see this dip in appointments and this immediate increase in cancellations. Now, with our reporting, we're able to watch as customers are canceling their appointments or if something's changed. So with that, we can actually work with John and marketing to consider maybe we should send out an email. And even then, when issues have come up where we're not sure if our customers understand the levels we're taking to actually make sure that our service bays are being sanitized and we're taking care of our customers that are coming in and making sure that we're following all the regulations the state has put in place, we send out emails to make sure we're actively communicating with our customers. And what we've done is, working with John and the marketing team, we've created islands and brand-specific segments. So whenever we need to quickly communicate with our customers, I don't have to spend any time building out a segment. John doesn't have to think about it. Those segments are already created and they're ready to use whenever we need to. Does anyone want to expand on that?
Well, I was just thinking about the one report you have that's broken down by source, so that we can easily see, whether a source is coming in through paid traffic versus, a Roadster lead and things like that. I mean, I think that visualization makes it very easy to evaluate the insights and make, strategic decisions based on it.
That's a good call out. We have it's called a dealer socket dashboard. Dealer socket is our lead management tool. And what was really interesting was previously Rick Chinks, our COO, had asked me, what was our referrals like? And historically, our referrals were 10%, well, upper 10%, lower 8% of all leads coming in on a monthly basis. And interestingly enough, I was able to see that decrease as we moved past April, going down to 3 to 4 to 2% currently. So by actively watching these dashboards, we're able to see the trends of where our business is going to go and some difficulties that we may face. And with our platform in place now, we can actually readily tackle these issues.
Great. I wanted to thank you guys, everybody, for the great questions that are coming in. And thank you again to Servco team, Pete, Tosif, Brian, John, Sheila, Sean, for sharing all the solutions that can help us improve the way we learn about our customers and leverage the information to provide the best possible experience. Thank you. I'm going to share a slide to close out. To close out, the session is being recorded and we'll share it with you via hec.org/true. We heard a lot about a lot of things today. If you want to continue that conversation, reach out directly or use the survey. We do want to start creating an ecosystem of people that are interested in Tableau, people that are interested in Salesforce. So if you indicate that in the survey, we can get more people together to talk. So please do fill out the survey if you want to continue the conversation. And even if you don't want to continue the conversation, please still fill out the survey. I could use your input in telling me whether this is exactly what you need, what's missing. If it was such great information, we should plan another session to learn more and delve more thoroughly into just one of the things the team shared today. So please take a moment to fill that out. I wanted to make sure True's efforts are helping organizations in Hawaii to learn about and adopt new solutions. So again, share your feedback. I'd also like to highlight some upcoming True events. We have another Servco speaker coming up. We'll be interviewing Julie Yamamoto, General Operations Manager of Hui Car Share in Women in Tech on October 21st. I'm excited to learn how she took the idea and built it to what it is today. I'd also like to reinforce that True focuses on providing and sharing solutions. True is vendor and tool agnostic, and we are solutions focused. There are two other events coming up. One is Secure Remote Working, where Kelly Ueoka of Paxa will be sharing how Island Holdings has tackled remote working while ensuring that they maintain a secure digital environment. A lot of us are using Office 365, like the Servco team, and Microsoft continues to enhance their product offerings. Kelly shared that many of those tools that we have access to actually aren't being used. So come and learn how we can take advantage of those. Another event is that Salesforce is going to share, we're going to share an event hosted by Dina Tierney of Pacific Point, where she'll do a fireside chat to share how 2 state agencies have leveraged Salesforce to transition off legacy systems to handle case management, customer service, call center, and more. They each had a very different approach, one starting small, one starting large, to reach their goals. So join us for those. If you're interested in learning more about these solutions or learning more about how you can be involved, again, the website is hec.org/true. I look forward to more collaboration as we face multiple challenges, from combating the pandemic to diversifying Hawaii's economy, to accelerating the adoption of technology and innovation to make our organizations more productive and competitive. Thank you again for joining us today and for your continued support. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. See ya.
Thank you.